Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. We are right on the cusp of the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2, but we still have some topics to cover before that release happens. Nintendo has announced several titles on the horizon over the last several months, so we are going to take this opportunity to deliver our hype rankings for all the first-party games coming to Switch and Switch 2. We also have a lot of news to get to, and joining me for this fun exercise is But Why Though editor-in-chief and co-owner Kate Sánchez. Kate, how are you doing?
Hi, Brian. I'm excited to be here. I actually haven't gotten to dive into my thoughts on the individual Nintendo stuff coming up, so I was very excited when you asked me.
Well, we have a lot to get to, and I'm really happy that you are here to share your thoughts on it. We have gotten a lot of news, actually, so we will be getting to that before we jump into the main segment at the tail end. It's going to be a little bit of a weirdly structured show. Normally, the main segment is in the middle. This episode, the main segment is going to be at the end of the show. We're going to have two separate news segments here. So before we dive in, though, I do want to address a little bit about what happened last week across most podcast platforms. So if you listen to the show on any podcast platform other than Spotify, Patreon, or the video version on YouTube, you may have noticed that last week's episode didn't hit your feed until Monday. Normally it hits on Friday. Didn't hit your feed until Monday. That was not a planned thing. I actually recorded and submitted the episode when I normally do. But with last week's episode, I started publishing the video version on Spotify as well. Several people on the Spotify comment section were requesting the video version come over to Spotify, and I happily obliged that. People want me to do something within reason. I will happily do that. It turns out, though, my podcast hosting platform was not the most prepared for that, and it resulted in the feed crashing and not sending the episode to anywhere but Spotify. And since I manually upload the YouTube video version and the Patreon version of the show separate from my podcast hosting platform, those versions publish just fine. But I ended up making last week's Patreon version free to everyone over the weekend to try to mitigate the problem while that glitch was still in effect. But so not only did that happen, but the Apple podcast version of the entire podcast feed was also completely delisted for a few days. And then the other podcast platforms just didn't receive the show. So I'm really sorry about all of that. So I'm part of the Podderation Podcast Network, and he has been working closely with the hosting company that we use to try to make sure that doesn't happen again. When I upload this episode, I'm going to be uploading the video version again, so we're going to be monitoring it closely. So I sincerely apologize if I threw you off your podcast listening routines last week. And if it ever happens again, check out the Patreon page or my Blue Sky profile, because I was trying to keep people up to date as up to date as possible over there. So yeah. That said, don't panic too much, because I still don't know where and when I'm getting my Switch 2. So, and also I'm traveling from June 3rd to June 6th for work. Really inopportune timing for somebody who has a weekly Nintendo podcast and a new Nintendo system is coming out. So there's actually a very good chance that the Switch 2 launch episode will be delayed by a day or two in hopes of me getting my hands on one of the consoles and being able to talk about it from an educated standpoint. But if I'm not able to grab one, I will do my best to book someone who does have it and will be able to share their opinions on the system in Mario Kart World. But I just don't want people to look for the Switch 2 launch episode and it be a couple days late, and then they're like, oh no, the glitch is happening again. I mean, maybe it did, but the more likely answer is that it will be an intentional delay. So fun times. Last Friday was an absolute nightmare as I tried to fix those glitches. So thanks to everyone who still is listening after that disaster of a technical glitch. But Kate, speaking of Mario Kart World, this is the first segment of the show. We received a huge info dump on that game in the form of an Ask the Developer interview on Nintendo.com. So this was the format that kind of emerged out of the Iwata Asks style of content, where the late president of Nintendo would interview developers about like a franchise and the upcoming game that's related to that franchise. So like when they did Mario Kart 7 on 3DS, they did like a whole like retrospective with like the people who created Mario Kart and like talking about like the prototypes that they did and how they landed on like the concept. So those are always super interesting. But the interviews are conducted internally, so you won't exactly get like the hard hitting questions that you might find like if a journalist was interviewing them.
Yeah.
But they always seem to like surface interesting tidbits. Do you have a favorite Iwata Asks interview?
I don't know if I do, honestly, because I think I've talked about this when I showed up before. I was so late to coming to Nintendo as a whole. I wasn't super plugged into the Iwata Ask, sadly, but I did tune in to the segment for Mario Kart World, though. So I have that information. I'm sorry I don't have one to pull from.
No, it's fine. I mean, there's so many great ones. There's also, it's so great to just peruse through some of these. And like, if you ever see me do like a retrospective episode of all things Nintendo, like I've done the Wind Waker retrospective, I've done the Mario Kart retrospective. If you ever see those, like that's like my number one source is I check to see if there's an Iwata Asks, and then I fan out from there and like try to search deeper into that. So it's such a wealth of knowledge, because while you don't get the questions that like you would if it was a journalist interviewing these people, one, journalists often don't get access to a lot of the Nintendo developers the way that they do here. But two, it's also like they will be a lot more open with members of Nintendo. So it's like, I've asked certain questions to like Nintendo luminaries, and I won't get like a real deep answer. But here, because it's like fellow developers interviewing them, I feel like they get a little bit deeper, even if it is geared for like a wide casual audience. So, I mean, it definitely has value. I'm not trying to discount it at all. But this interview in particular was with several members of the Mario Kart World development team. And we're not going to go through the entire interview since it's multiple pages long and covers a lot of stuff we already knew, just kind of goes into it a little bit deeper. But there was some new information that came out of it. So first, according to Kosuke Yabuki, who is the producer, they actually began prototyping Mario Kart World around 2017, which, as you may recall, is the same year that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out and the Switch 1 had just come out. Like, did that catch you off guard that like it had happened so soon?
It did, honestly. I mean, I feel like, especially with the long development cycles, it is becoming more frequent for people to iterate on an upcoming idea with either post-season launches of stuff. But like, it felt way too close to me. And I guess it is, I don't know. I've been trying to unpack that part specifically. I talked about it with a couple of people, and I guess it is maybe a little bit different when you're dealing with a franchise where you're like, there is always going to be a next one. So you can start that process soon, but it did catch me off guard, quite a bit actually.
Yeah, and what caught me even more off guard, which it makes sense when you really like think about it, Kenta Sato, who was another person in this interview, programming director on Mario Kart World, he confirmed that they started development on Switch 1, but then realized that it would be tough with the technology in the system when they decided to do open world and 24-player races. And he had a quote here. He said, quote, "When we were developing for the Nintendo Switch system, it was difficult for us to incorporate everything we wanted, so we were always conscious of what we were giving up in return. We discussed things like toning down the visuals, lowering the resolution, and even considered dropping the frame rate to 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second in some cases. It was a tough situation." And then the interviewer was like, "Well, what did you end up giving up?" And Yabuki then followed up saying that they didn't want to give up on anything, so they decided to keep Mario Kart content flowing through Switch 1 through the booster course pass that they put out for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where they doubled the number of courses, so that way they could still have content coming out on the Switch 1 for Mario Kart while people waited for Switch 2. And then Sato said that this was around 2020 that they changed development from Switch 1 to Switch 2, but at the time they only really had like a basic idea of what the specs of the Switch 2 would be. So it was kind of like, developing a game with like estimated specifications, that sounds like a really like difficult thing to do.
Having worked with dev teams, I can't imagine those conversations. Like, I can't imagine the builds and rebuilds or like rigging and then having to redo it entirely from the animation standpoint. Like, it seems insane, but at the same time, like, I think that we're in a space where we have a lot of games launch before they're ready or on the wrong platform or in the wrong generation instead of holding them back. So like, I kind of respect that quite a bit, where it was just kind of like, you know what? We're not going to put out something half baked. We're not going to sacrifice the vision. We will find another way around it. So I respect it, but I'm just imagining their producers, like the engineers and the artists doing the work, sure, but I know that those producers must have had a tough time.
Oh my gosh, yeah, just trying to manage that as they're like, all right, well, I guess it's going to be like this powerful, and I guess it's going to be capable of this resolution
Yeah.
and this frame rate, but really, who knows? LOL. And yeah, a prime example of a game that released probably on the wrong platform and didn't really have like a strong launch whatsoever was Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
Yep.
And that's wild because that's like a first party game.
That was honestly where when they were having that conversation or talking about that and the delaying it specifically for that was immediately what I thought of, because not a lot of people know this, but Pokemon Scarlet Violet was actually my first Pokemon game. I played the cards when I was little, but I never had anything to play the video games on. And when I came to it, I was like, oh God, Pokemon fans, why do you live like this? The mountains are moving. But it is interesting to see what first party titles they were able to hold on to and like let them wait for the next cycle, and which ones they had to put out. I think is interesting if you kind of judge Mario Kart World against everything else.
Now, as somebody who has been involved in the game dev side of this industry, were you shocked that Nintendo couldn't get Mario Kart World to run on Switch 1 in the way that they wanted to, but they could get Tears of the Kingdom running on Switch 1?
That's a tough question. I think my answer is no, only because surprisingly, at least from what I have heard engineers specifically talk about, and I used to hire riggers, which kind of they do the weight and physics balance of animations and stuff like that. Tears of the Kingdom looks harder and sounds harder, but when you have everything physics based, once you bake that in, it is easy to layer on top of. Hard to start up, easier to pull off. But there's certain elements I would see in Mario Kart World, specifically when you look at the massive multiplayer component on it, that like all of that affects your build in a multitude of different ways. And it's not just a server end piece. It is also how the animations run in the front. And I think that like with how low powered the Switch was in general, facilitating anything like that, the specs on the Switch just don't handle, right? Like there's a reason the Switch is not known for its multiplayer capabilities. So yeah, I wasn't surprised actually, but I think a lot of it does just have to do with the multiplayer. If I were to guess, having heard people or having been a fly on the wall to listen to dev complaints, that is where I would be.
Fair enough. I mean, I just think of like, jumping from a sky island all the way down into the depths, and then like, all the physics simulations that have to happen at once with like Ultra Hand and Fuse and Ascend and all that stuff. And, Breath of the Wild itself was so physics based, but then Tears of the Kingdom was just to the nth degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the easiest way, so the place I work for now, one of the things that you can think of, and I think this is a good example to explain, like sometimes it's very hard to find out your base, right? When you're working and you need to do hand animations for grabbing, how many ways do you think somebody can pick something up?
Oh man, like 30? Like it's got to be something like pretty high.
Yeah, I think the number's 31 if I remember correctly from the paper.
Yes, by Price is Right rules, I win.
Yes, you win. But the funny thing is, I think when you eliminate like the really weird ways that people pick things up, it comes down to about 19. So ultimately, you have animating something to pick an object up. You have to anticipate. I work at a VR place, so you have to anticipate the different ways somebody will move their hand. But once you've animated the base of like the 19 ways people actually pick stuff up, then it's less insurmountable. So it's kind of like you have your solid foundation when it comes to physics and like base rules. Things get weird when you put multiple people in the same space interacting with the same objects and making them go very different ways than you thought. So
sure, that makes
I don't know if that was a good illustration, but that's probably one of my favorite like anecdotes that I've heard during presentations. So
Well, that's really fascinating. So thank you for sharing that. Um, so going back to this interview, Yabuki actually kind of confirms what I've been saying all along, because a running thing that I've done here on the show is I've wondered how Nintendo could possibly expand beyond games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It's like, all right, well, they've already kind of done the like, let's just put everything in one single game. Where do they really go from here? And his quote was, I felt that in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, we were able to perfect the formula that we'd been following in the series up to that point, where players race on individual courses. That's why this time we wanted the gameplay to involve players driving around a large world, and we began creating a world map like this. And then when they asked why they called it Mario Kart World instead of Mario Kart 9, Yabuki said that if they were just going to make a bigger Mario Kart with extra courses, they probably would have called it Mario Kart 9. But since they took the series in a different direction, they wanted to change it to something more like distinct and reflective of what makes this game different. And Yabuki said that this was actually like super early on in the development process, because like he showed like, hey, here's concept art from like when we were like coming up with the idea of this game, and it had Mario Kart World written on it, which is pretty wild. So that's kind of cool, because like I feel like a lot of times we get code names very early on like that, but they seemed like they understood what they were doing.
yeah, I think that was like I think that was my favorite part of the interview, because I think that really shows a dedication to a creative process. I think because I think now like franchises are are staples what we're doing, and I think you can bring somebody in with a franchise, but like at a certain point you can stifle developers. And I think the fact that they were able to be like, oh yeah, we're not just going to add more courses, like we're going to change the game and fundamentally build off of something that has been a staple, that's exciting to me. That's not just like, oh, ninth in a really great franchise that I love setting up when my friends come over. It
And that
is,
always sells super well, so they could have played it
yes,
safe.
exactly. And instead, they decided to take a risk, push, and actually make the product more. And I think for me, at least, that has been a sticking point when it comes to some Nintendo generations. It does feel like resting on their laurels with some titles and some things. And I think, at least from what we've seen, and I think Mario Kart World and the Ask the Developer segment really kind of pointed to it, it does feel like they're putting their all into it. Like it is very much like new generation, we're gonna come with new concepts, new ideas, and really push it forward. And I think for a household staple with intergenerational characters where like a grandpa can literally play with a grandchild and have memories from it, that's exciting.
It is. And it's really interesting because like there's almost like a juxtaposition against the Switch 2 itself, because if you look at all these franchises that we know about coming to the Switch 2, and we're going to get into many of them when we get to the final segment of this episode, the like the criticism that a lot of people have levied at the Switch 2 is like, hey, this is just like iterative. It's just like a
Yeah.
bigger, more powerful Switch. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I think the Switch is such an incredible form factor, and like a more powerful, like slightly bigger version of that is with a better screen and everything is exactly what I want. But like if you look at the actual games that are coming out, like so many of them are innovative and like just
Mm-hmm.
like completely pushing their franchise forward, like Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza. Like it's the first
Yep.
3D Donkey Kong game we've had in 25 years. Like that's wild. Metroid Prime 4, I mean, it looks like they're doing a lot of cool stuff in that one. Pokemon Legends ZA is doing a lot of unique things. And I mean, there's probably like hundreds of games we don't even know about that are like, you know, in development. They just haven't announced yet. So it's really exciting to see Nintendo like be like, okay, yeah, maybe we are playing
Yeah.
it a tad bit safe on the hardware side, but wait till you see the software that we're making for this.
I think that that's really for me. Like I, whether or not I buy a Switch 2 at launch is neither here nor there. But what I am excited about is consistently this. Like the Switch has existed for couch co-op. The Switch has existed for single player games. I'm a multiplayer person. I love to be like gaming for me is defined by playing with others. The fact that so many of the titles that are coming here are being defined by like massive multiplayer experiences, and we got a glimpse of it with Jamboree last year. I think that I think is really cool, and I do think like as it gets more expensive to produce consoles, and as you start to hit that top end, there really is nowhere else you can go with the hardware. So it does have to switch from innovating on your hardware to actually understanding what's going to push that hardware further and investing in the types of software or IP that is going to make it actually shine and get the most out of it, which I like my Switch because I can play it when I'm going everywhere, but I'm gonna be honest, I feel like a lot of it was just kind of there and just kind of, it's Nintendo, so we're all gonna be in love with it, and I'm gonna play it on the plane. And now I actually do feel an invigoration of like, oh, they're doing something. They're not like, being Nintendo is not just enough. They are going to do something with it, and that I think is what's really cool.
Yeah, and I think they did some innovation, like a good deal of innovation. I think that we had like some franchises that were just like, hey, this is the definitive entry of this franchise. See like Smash Ultimate, see Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, see maybe Pikmin 4, some people would argue is like that for that series. But then you have things like Mario Odyssey, Bowser's Fury, Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom that did innovate those franchises that have been around for, 40 years. And I think that, it was a good balance of like, hey, this is just the best version of this established formula, like a Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, or this is like an all new take on this franchise that's been going for, 3.5 decades. So, I mean, I'm with you for the most part there, but I'll fight
I will say I've played significantly less Switch games, so I will give you that.
I'm sure you played Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and Mario Odyssey.
I did. I actually, I loved Super Mario Wonder. I thought that was
Mario
delightful.
Wonder's fantastic.
Mario Wonder was fantastic.
Yeah, it's a delight. So also in this interview was Atsuko Asahi, who is the composer of Mario Kart World. And she says that the team created a ton of new music for the game, but they also wanted to add extra music to the jukebox that plays when you're in free roam mode. So they reworked, so they have all like the course themes, and then they made reworked versions of a bunch of music from past Mario and Mario Kart games. So like in the videos that they shared, there's like a rework of like a Super Mario World song. There's a rework of like a Mario Brothers 3 song. It's really, really cool, like some of the stuff that they're doing. And it just plays as you're going around in free roam to kind of keep it fresh. And Asahi says that if you add up all the songs available in the game, whether you're counting like, jingles, course tracks, tracks in the jukebox during free roam, there's over 200 tracks in Mario Kart World. And then they also said that if you add up all the variations of like the courses that you can have, like, because you can drive between courses to get to the courses. You can like take courses at like different times of day, different weather conditions. There's over 100 courses that you can drive on in this game, which, this seems like an impossibly big game at launch.
Yeah.
So that's
it seems massive. Like I can have multiple barbecues in a year and have everybody over to play Mario Kart, and we will not exhaust it. Which I think is good.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm super like ready for this. Like I feel like there's so much we don't know about this game, even with all like the hands-on sessions, the deep dives like this. Like there's a lot that we don't know about this. And we're going to get more into this during the final segment of the show. But overall thoughts, how are you feeling about Mario Kart World right now?
Oh, I'm really excited. I'm really excited with how big it can be online wise. I'm really excited. I think for me, if I had to describe it, it is really just the chaos that I think it can inspire. Because that is always the fun part of Mario Kart, and or if you are an adult playing Mario Kart with people. Like the chaos is what feeds the beauty and fun of the game, especially when you are playing with others, whether it's couch or online. And I remember very specifically, Jesse Vitale wrote up our hands-on previews out of the New York event, and there's a section where he says, and then a UFO came down. And I
He
was like,
still
oh my
maintains.
God. Like,
I talked to him
that
about
is...
that. And he still has not found anybody else who has experienced that. So we are choosing not to believe him until we see it for ourselves. Because
like a true UFO abduction.
exactly. And like, I hope that it never happens in like the final game, and it like he just is like branded as this horrible liar, and like it's like the kid that I
A
like
Mario
wrote.
Kart conspiracy theorist.
I hope he's like the kid, the way I remember the kid on the back of the bus when he was telling me like how you could get like unlimited extra lives in Super Mario Brothers 3, and it's like, okay, let me go try that. So I would try it for like 2 hours trying to do this trick, and then it turns out it was just like a fake thing. Like he always had like the secret code that like wasn't real. It was
Oh my
like
gosh.
it was like the AOL N64 channel, like when it was like, hey, here's how you unlock Luigi in Mario 64. So and it's like you have to beat all the levels in reverse order or whatever. It's like, what? And so yeah, like it was I like Jesse a lot. He's a very dear friend. But I really
So
hope
you don't believe in the UFO.
I just hope that it actually happened and Nintendo just chooses to screw with him and like remove the UFO for the final game so it never happens again, and like he's the only person to experience it. He's like, no guys, believe me, it happened. I just hope it's like he never lives down.
That would be beautiful. That would be beautiful.
But
yes, the chaos.
Yes, I mean they even acknowledged that with like the game chat stuff, with like being able to see people's faces on the camera. They were and somebody in, I forget which developer it was, but they were like, so you can see the look of mild despair on your friends' faces, and I was like, that's fantastic that they acknowledge.
They know what this game is. That's how you get your serotonin boost, and it's also how you throw your Joy-Con and then put the game away for a while.
That's why they always encourage you to wear the Joy-Con straps, which I don't think anybody I've ever met does.
No, never. I think I only have when it was a session of Mario Kart or a little bit of adult fun while playing.
Yes. So if you want to read the full interview with the Mario Kart World team, they also get into why they added Cow as a playable character, and they go into detail with it. Like there's a whole section about adding Cow.
I love Cow.
Yes, I do too. It's pretty entertaining as well. But that's all of the details we're going to cover in this episode of All Things Nintendo. And as everybody listening to this already knows, Mario Kart World comes to Switch 2 on launch day, June 5th. So we're just 2 weeks away from finally getting to play the final version of this game.
I'm not that I'm not excited. It's just that I'm like, oh God, it's already June.
I know. Hey, this is being recorded May 22nd, so we are right around the corner from the Switch 2. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. I appreciate Cow, but I also really love some of the costumes that the characters have. I was partial in my build because they had like a bunch of like different costumes unlocked. I was partial to Mariachi Waluigi, which is a tongue twister. I realized when I just said it just now. I was like, this dude is unbelievable. Mariachi Waluigi. Wow, that is harder to say than I thought it was. But this show,
I'm like saying it in my head, and I'm like, oh, actually,
yeah. You're like, oh, pathetic, and then you're like, oh, wait a sec.
Yeah.
So this show is brought to you by the wonderful folks on the All Things Nintendo Patreon page. Without their support, I could not continue doing this show. If you want to join up, you can come in at as low as $3 a month. That will give you access to the community Discord where folks are chopping it up about the Switch 2 pre-order situation. They're doing their own Switch 2 hype rankings over there right now. So lots of fun topics to talk about. There are also $5 and $10 tiers that get you that access, as well as perks like early and ad-free episodes, as well as shout-outs at the end of every episode. All tiers get you priority access to Q&A episodes, so you can head over to Patreon and search All Things Nintendo, or type in patreon.com/Brian Shea Podcasts. You can also find All Things Nintendo, well, I guess not All Things Nintendo, merch on Dashery, which is the new storefront that I got converted from TeePublic. You can't have anything that says Nintendo, I found out, because it got DMCA'd, but there are several designs related to the show, including some legally ambiguous controller outlines that you can slap on hoodies, t-shirts, coffee mugs, and more. So yeah, I've made a big point over the past several weeks with all the recent media struggles with Polygon, and then temporarily Giant Bomb, and God knows how many others, to encourage people to support those who make the content that they love consuming. Whether it's monetarily, through morale, like just moral support is really helpful a lot of times, or just reading articles and watching videos.
Mm-hmm.
But Kate, this is where I'm going to throw it to you. As someone who co-founded and ran an independent site for 4 years before joining Game Informer, I'm a big proponent of the work that people do in the independent media space. And late last year, you all over at But Why Though did a fundraising campaign to help sustain the site. Can you talk about any other best ways that people can support your outlet right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good thing to talk about, because ultimately, the biggest mover is sub to your site. Do something like that. But I think what is hard is right now with how everything is, not everybody has the means. And so I think there are lots of ways, literally just being a follower. Don't just go to the site, literally follow any site you do on their socials. It helps them get interaction. If you see a post they do, like it, repost it. It sounds dumb, but a lot of PR people do go and look at that. They want to see how people are engaging with it. If you buy something after you read somebody's review, whether it's a movie ticket, a DLC, anything like that, share the article and say that, or reply to the post and say that. And these seem like really small things, but because we're in such a social space, all eyes are on those channels. And you, as a reader or a watcher of your favorite media, have the ability to directly engage and tell the people who give us opportunities that you trust us. And you saying that you trust us helps them trust us and helps us get more opportunities. And that's how it works in a lot of those spaces. Or, sign up to a newsletter. We launched one, and it's been really good. I think, especially if they're from folks that you go to for your reviews or critics that you follow, do that. You'll get recommendations once a week. That's good. There's a lot of stuff out there. Let us help you. So yeah, it is really just, I don't know. It seems weird saying, but it is just letting people know that they're making an impact. I think I have had some really bad days, and somebody has commented and been like, actually, I was having a very bad week, and I did the Lies of P preview, and I covered it from the angle of accessibility as well as the other pieces. And Ji-Won Choi, the game director, had specifically talked about difficulty levels in a way I found was really compelling. And so I covered it from that, and I was having a rough day, and somebody posted it on their LinkedIn and quoted it. And just said, this makes me feel good as somebody who just discovered Souls-likes, and just really connected to it. And that made my week. That made me feel good. It made me feel good that somebody cared about something I put into the world. So yeah, just do that. That was a little tangent. But
no, that's a great point. I mean, really just letting people know. I've had that as well with this podcast, with something on Game Informer, right? People on, whether it's Spotify, the Patreon page, the community Discord, the YouTube comments, saying, showing that they're excited for this episode hitting, saying that, they really enjoyed the show. I have a fantastic guest on, anything like that it really does make continuing to do this show worthwhile in a way that doesn't cost anything, right? It's the old adage, being a decent and kind human being doesn't cost anything.
Yes.
And also, you know what else doesn't cost anything? I know we're all super busy and we all want the fastest information possible. But when you Google something, just scroll right past that AI section and go to the actual site and get read directly from the site, because traffic also matters.
Yes, it does. It does a lot.
Yeah. So forget the Google AI nonsense and go check out the site. It's also a lot more reliable. So go and check out But Why Though. Kate, you're not leaving. We're going to keep this show rolling, but first we're going to take our initial break of this episode. When we get back, we will be covering some more news, including a brief but deep dive into Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment, and a new quote from Shigeru Miyamoto about the redesign of Donkey Kong. We will be right back.
Hey there, I'm Hugh from Podderation. If you like today's show, why not check out Rolling Dice and Taking Names, the premier tabletop review show. Join Marty and Tony as they invite you to their metaphorical kitchen table to talk about all the latest board games, RPG games, miniatures, and anything in the tabletop world that takes their fancy. From in-depth reviews to the latest gaming news, they make it their mission to find the latest and greatest in the tabletop world and deliver it all wrapped up for your listening pleasure. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We are back, and it is now time to cover the rest of the news out of the last week, not involving Mario Kart World. So, in addition to that Ask the Developer interview, we also received a new video from the Creator's Voice series that Nintendo has been doing over this past week. This time, it was focused on Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which, as you likely know, is the new Musou action game taking place during the distant past sequences of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So the video is with Ryota Matsushita, and he is the producer at Koei Tecmo, and Yosuke Hayashi, who is the AAA game studio head at Koei Tecmo. And as the name implies of the game, it takes place during the Imprisoning War, which was the stuff that we got to see during the flashback scenes in Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And it's the war that took place between the Zonai and Zelda, and then the other side was Ganondorf and his forces. So we saw a little bit in the cutscenes of Tears of the Kingdom, but like really it was surface level stuff. Like we saw like the beginnings of battles, but very few actual battles were shown. So this game is going to actually get to see us play through a lot of those battles, which is very cool. But one really interesting thing that they mention is that this is how they start the video. And it's like, I think it sent me reeling the first time I watched this, so I had to watch it again. They said, quote, "You'll see how the people contended with the threat of the original Ganondorf." And some people took this to mean that this is the first version of Ganondorf ever, while others seem to think that this means the original version of this specific Ganondorf. Because remember, he was, spoilers for Tears of the Kingdom, very obvious spoilers, but he was like kind of like put in stasis for like thousands of years underneath Hyrule Castle. And then we saw him resurrected in Tears of the Kingdom. How did you take that quote saying the original Ganondorf?
So I feel like I always do this. I'm not the most versed Zelda person. However, I do like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild are really my only 2 points. I took it as the latter personally. So like, but that's just because I was
pre-dehydration Ganondorf is what you're saying. Okay.
Yes, pre-dehydration. Which I have tried. I also think Ganondorf is hot. So like this is like another part of me. So I'm just like, I just hope he's hot. Like that's and I'm just like, well, if he can be hot post dehydration, I feel like pre-dehydration he also has to be hot.
Oh, he looks the same after he's resurrected. I mean, he's back to his former glory, and I'm assuming he's still voiced by Matt Mercer, who has a fantastic voice. So I'm sure that also helps.
It's a strong chin that he has, the strong jawline. But no, that was probably the least. Yes, pretty sure that was the, what do you call it, the most unintelligent conversation about Ganondorf you've had. But yeah, I think it's just pre-dehydration, but I also don't have the extra lore. I'm really interested to think like what the other side of that conversation is though.
Yeah, because like them saying that how they contended with the original Ganondorf, I almost lean the other way, but I can see why it would be. I mean, because usually, again, this is Koei Tecmo, so it's not Nintendo actually saying it. But at the same time, it's like, are we going to get more context around that with this game? And like, are we going to get like a better explanation of when those scenes take place? Because there's also a lot of debate of like, oh, but like, Skyward Sword was supposed to be about like the founding of Hyrule and like kind of the energy of demise starting this cycle of like resurrection of over multiple generations. And it's like, it kind of felt like for some people, the flashback sequences in Tears of the Kingdom kind of broke the timeline a little bit. But then there's other people who are like, oh no, it happens so far in the future that the founding of Hyrule happens after all the other Zelda games. So it's like, the destruction of Hyrule and then the refounding of Hyrule. But like, there's so many questions that this
Well,
could answer.
and that was like my big question that I had, like, because I'm actually I like Muso games like overall, so I'm pretty excited for this in general. But my question that I've been wondering, just as like a Zelda newbie, what is like, is this canon? Because it's not Nintendo developing. Is it like, what is the Zelda canon?
So,
Like,
oh man, you've done it.
I'm sorry.
So there is one timeline that at the start, right? It starts with Skyward Sword, and then there's a couple of games, and then it gets to Ocarina of Time, and that's where things just go off the rails. So
Okay.
if you even know about like the story of Ocarina of Time,
Yes.
so at the end of that game, Link as an adult fights Ganondorf, and then Ganondorf turns into Ganon, and Link fights him. And there are two outcomes that are canonical. One is Link defeats him, and the other one is Link is defeated by Ganon. So that creates two timelines. And then there's a third branch of that timeline, because in the in this this timeline, you know, one is like Link goes back, or basically, so at the end of Ocarina of Time, Zelda sends Link back to his childhood era. And that creates two separate timelines. So on one side, you have Link being defeated. And then on the other side, there's two timelines where Link won. But in the adult timeline, there's no hero anymore because Zelda sent him back to his original timeline. So that era has no hero of time. It's just the events of Ocarina of Time happened, but the hero is absent. So like evil's kind of allowed to run amok. And then on the child timeline, the hero of time is still there, but he's a kid because he goes back in time to live out his childhood. So that's the timeline where we get Majora's Mask and then like other games.
Okay.
So the theory as it exists now is that after several games in each lineage, they kind of converge and create Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Because in Breath of the Wild, Zelda herself references things from each timeline. Like she references Wind Waker and Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time and Skyward Sword. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of things that are from distinct timelines. But then there's also the theory that like, you know, this happened so long ago compared to Breath of the Wild that there are like it's all kind of legend at this point, hence the name Legend of Zelda. So like as generations go on, and legends are passed down from generation to generation, like some of the details kind of become murky. So it's like, oh, what timeline is Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom a part of? And the answer seems to be, it doesn't matter because it's so far in the future that like everything that happened before it is kind of just like in this nebulous era of like the before times. And there's no real recorded history that like made it because it's been so long.
Damn.
So yes, but Skyward Sword has largely been considered the first entry in the timeline because again, that's the founding of Hyrule. It's the creation of the Master Sword. Demise is like kind of like the evil like spirit that Link defeats in that, and then he's the one who kind of becomes like the spirit of what becomes Ganon. So, or he sets like things in motion to make it so Ganon is going to be like resurrected over the course of generations. So yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, Hyrule Historia is a great resource, but I also did an entire episode on leading up to Tears of the Kingdom. I did an episode on the timeline, and I went in depth, like game by game, what happens and like where it leads. It's still kind of confusing, even going like game by game, because it's like, okay, now you got to jump over to this other timeline. But yeah.
Oh, look what I found. The Zelda timeline to this point from All Things Nintendo.
Yes.
I'm going to bookmark this and you're going to save me and not make me sound dumb in front of my peers.
Well, I hope you find it helpful. So this it's interesting though, because in Ocarina of Time, I actually asked Aonuma about this, because Ocarina of Time, there's so many like parallels between it and Tears of the Kingdom's story. Like if you've seen, I don't know how much you played of Tears of the Kingdom and like the story and everything, but there's a scene where like Ganondorf is like pledging his allegiance to the King of Hyrule, and then he ultimately betrays him. That scene is also in Ocarina of Time, with that version of Ganondorf kneeling before the King of Hyrule, pledging his allegiance, knowing he's going to betray him. Also, the head sage in Ocarina of Time is Rauru, who is also kind of the head sage in Tears of the Kingdom, but he looks completely different. And then also Ocarina of Time kind of is the depiction of the Imprisoning War, and that is also the war that the flashbacks in Tears of the Kingdom is said to depict. So there's a lot of parallels, and I asked Aonuma about that, and he just kind of like laughed, and he's like, well, you know, some things are open to interpretation. So they say that this version of Hyrule Warriors it doesn't just depict the battles of the Imprisoning War, but also shows more insight into life in the Kingdom of Hyrule after Princess Zelda was sent back in time. So because of that, we're actually going to get to know the 4 masked sages from Tears of the Kingdom, which we don't really... They're kind of personality-less in Tears of the Kingdom. So that's fun that we're going to get to know them a little bit better. Probably also get to know Rauru and Sonia, I think is his wife's name. God, man. Yeah. So they said that the Switch 2 you've played Warriors games. They said that the Switch 2 allowed them to include more enemies than in other Hyrule Warriors games, which, interjection here, I would contend was never the problem with any Warriors games. But they also said they're saying that this, because of the Switch 2, there's going to be higher frame rate than the games on Switch 1, which is good because Age of Calamity, which by the way wasn't really canon. That's the confusing part, right? That dials it all back to your original question where you were like, all right, is this canon?
It's canon.
We are led to believe yes, because this is supposed to like be like the events that like from Zelda's perspective when she went back in time in Tears of the Kingdom. But Age of Calamity, in all of the marketing, they were like, oh, this is a prequel to Breath of the Wild. You get to see the events that happened 100 years before Breath of the Wild that led to Link being like all but killed, but then put in the Shrine of the Resurrection. And then we played Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, and it was like an alternate timeline. And it was like, wow, come on, man. Like you guys marketed it this way. And then it just like, there was like time travel shenanigans that were implemented in like alternate timelines. And it was so frustrating. So I'm hoping that they saw that fans were like not super satisfied with that.
Yeah.
And they are going to take the alternate approach of being like, all right, let's actually keep it canon with the Imprisoning War stuff.
Okay.
So we don't have a date for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment quite yet, but we do know that it's coming to Switch 2 this winter. You talked about how you like Warriors games. What Hyrule Warriors games have you played? Any of them?
So I've only played Age of Calamity. That
Okay.
is the only one that I've played. Yeah.
So
I
that
really
one
liked it, but yeah, I also knew nothing.
Yeah, I mean, well, that one, it doesn't really depict the events that happened before Breath of the Wild, even though all the marketing, and I think even like the box says that, but
Yeah.
it like kind of depicts like alternative versions of those events. If you play the original Hyrule Warriors, which is also on Switch, that's kind of a fun like multiversal version of Zelda, where it's like, okay, like this version of this character that only appeared in this one game is interacting with this other character that only appeared in this other one game. So it's like characters from all across the series coming together and like are playable. There's also
Oh, that's cool.
I guess and there's also all new characters. Like there's Linkle that they created for the definitive edition, which is on Switch, which is a female version of Link. And she's very cute, as you would imagine. But there's also sequences where you play as Ganondorf, which is unbelievable. And like the rock music, the rock versions of like the Zelda music is fantastic in that game. Like when you first hit it and it's just like the rock version of like the overworld theme from the original Zelda, it is just like 10 out of 10 chef's kiss, like amazing rendition.
Okay, I'm excited. I know what I'm downloading for my next plane ride.
Yes, it is super fun. Like that is the one I played all the way through to the end. Once I heard that Age of Calamity was like not canonical, and I don't think that, Hyrule Warriors, the first one, is really canonical either. It's just kind of like a fun like fan service, like multiverse story kind of situation. I kind of fell off because I was like, oh, cool. I want to see like what happened in like the prequel to my favorite game of all time, even if it's a different genre and a different developer. But then I was like, I don't know. But like, I do want to play Age of Calamity. So I'm excited for Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. And we're going to get into just how excited in the next segment. But the next piece that I want to talk about, happy Alarmo theme day to all who celebrate. We got a new theme on Alarmo based on Animal Crossing New Horizons. All you have to do is connect your Alarmo to the internet and it will download this update for free. So far, there are themes for Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Splatoon 3, Pikmin 4, Ring Fit Adventure, and now Animal Crossing New Horizon. Kate, do you have an Alarmo?
No, I wasn't allowed to get one, but it's so
I
cute.
wasn't allowed to get
It's so
one.
cute. Yes. It's
Well,
so cute. Like, if I had that disposable money, I would have one because it's adorable.
Well, I went to the Nintendo store in San Francisco last week, and they had them just sitting on the shelf. And every time I see one, there's like a split second in my head where I'm like, maybe I should pick up an Alarmo. And then, like, immediately I'm brought back to my senses. And like, what do I need an Alarmo for? Like, there's no need for it.
It's this and the Pokemon Home collection I've just been banned from looking at or like buying.
Oh, by the way,
that's so cute.
The Animal Crossing Home collection at the Nintendo store in San Francisco
Don't
is
do this to me, Brian.
Fantastic. It is. They have the Roost coffee set that is incredible, and it's like a coffee grinder and like the Roost themed like coffee mugs and everything. So adorable. I am so tempted every single time I see them because they also have them in the Tokyo Nintendo store.
Gosh.
But yeah, now it's a lot easier to get to San Francisco than it is Tokyo. So yeah, go check that out if you feel so inclined. But
I'm
yeah,
going to. I'm
Alarmo.
gonna have to like refrain myself. But
oh no, it was all restraint when I went to the Nintendo San Francisco store, and I still somehow spent over $100. So,
but it wasn't on an Alarmo.
It was not on an Alarmo. So, Kate, we first learned of the Donkey Kong character redesign through the very first Switch 2 video, where we saw a very brief glimpse of Mario Kart World. Then we saw a lot more of this new version of Donkey Kong in the Switch 2 reveal with both Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza. And this past week, at the opening events surrounding Epic Universe down in Florida, IGN got a sit down with none other than Shigeru Miyamoto, and they asked him about the Donkey Kong redesign. And here's what he had to say. He said, quote, "So when it comes to character creation with working with characters, I still take an active role in that. And looking back to the first generation Donkey Kong Country, we worked with Rare to create Donkey Kong Country. When we were talking about trying to create new versions, evolving Donkey Kong, we created the game called Jungle Beat. We worked together with the team that made 3D Mario. With the technology that was available at the time, we were able to make Donkey Kong more expressive. And going back to the design that Rare came up with, we reevaluated. What can we do to make the design what can we do with the design to make it more expressive? And then when it comes to the movie, we decided to move forward with this new generation Donkey Kong design." Which, you know, that's he is certainly more expressive. I don't know how you feel about it. It was a little jarring for me when I first saw this new version, but I've really warmed up to him.
Yeah, I've never been a big Donkey Kong girly. He's just been kind of there for me. I actually do like the new design but I think it's because and I think this happens a lot when characters get updated design nowadays. They get softer, rounder, like less edges, more round, and I think it makes them more inviting. I think very specifically what I like about the new design is the hair. Like his fur looks like fur, and I like, for some reason that just works very well for me, and I can't like pinpoint why. And I think it's less about the expression and more about like he just feels more welcoming, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a warmer character design.
Yeah.
And I grew up with the Donkey Kong Country games. And if you go back and speaking of, not to keep plugging like older episodes of All Things Nintendo, but I think it was last December, I had Kevin Bayless, who is the former member of Rare, who designed Diddy Kong, or created Diddy Kong and designed Donkey Kong for Donkey Kong Country that they, used for the subsequent 30 years at Nintendo. So it's a fascinating conversation. So I'm always going to be partial to that design just because,
Yeah.
seeing that character on Super Nintendo back then was so impactful for me. But it
Yeah.
also, really, characters are going to get redesigns. Like I grew up with Sonic, and look at the redesign he's gotten like over the years. Some of them are great. Like Sonic Adventure was fantastic. The current model of Sonic is awesome. Some of them are not so great, like the Sonic Boom versions and like the original movie version of Sonic. Like character redesigns can be very hit or miss, and I think it's important that the creators honor their own creative vision, but also are sensitive to the fact that some people are just going to outright reject it. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that it's a great thing when like fan bases have like an iron grip on the creative decisions made by a franchise. But at the same time, I think that the best, like for example, Mass Effect 3, when they were basically bullied into changing like the entire ending, and then they had to walk on eggshells for something like Andromeda. I think that that was a negative for that franchise and for the discourse surrounding that franchise. But then when you look at the movie version of Sonic, it's like, yeah, I think that was a time where like not bullying was justified, but like I think it was good that the designers listened to the fans in that moment.
And I think it's about like, I think that there's a balance because I think for me, and I'm somebody who liked the original ending of Mass Effect 3, but I feel like that was a domino in like too much player interaction for things that should be in dev control. And I don't know why I feel this, but I feel like narrative and story and like those pieces, that is the dev space. I think when it comes to visuals, because a lot of the time that is what is selling your game or your movie, whatever it is, to your public, that I think needs to have a really strong feedback loop, because there will be situations where people just can't get over the way something looks, and that's whether somebody doesn't like the color palette of it or somebody doesn't like the new design. So I completely agree with you. I do think the one thing I don't like about the new Donkey Kong design is actually his eyes. His eyes are kind of creepy, because they look way more like, I don't know, the little black space looks way more like inset. But yeah. So I can understand if there is some player backlash there.
Yeah, I mean, and I understand not liking a new character model. Like again, if they redesigned Sonic and like he looked bad, like I would hope that Sonic Team would listen.
Well, and to be honest too, like, and I think that this is the biggest thing, that this is the biggest weight that franchises that span multiple generations do have to contend with. Like, I don't believe that you can ever ruin someone's childhood when they're an adult. You can ruin their adulthood, but not their childhood. That memory is still there.
Yeah, I don't know with the Nickelodeon stuff that came out. That
oh God, okay, no, that's fair. That's very fair. But I do think that there is, when you come into a franchise and you're working on a franchise, it does mean a lot to people. You do have to understand that a lot of the relationships, for better or worse, that people have formed with these characters is going to be how they react to them and when things change. And I do think that, like, if we respect games as an art, as a medium and as art, we also need to understand the impact it makes on people's lives. And people will feel like, I think it's completely justified to have issues with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100%. And like, if you don't like the new design, that's fine. And it kind of, I mean, this is different because you're going to, you've probably played all the old Donkey Kong games with him looking like that. So it can be a bummer going forward. But it's almost like when I interviewed the singer of Avenged Sevenfold, M Shadows, I asked him like, hey, like, what do you think about like when like there's, because I feel like that band in particular, so many people are like, oh, I wish they'd go back to this era or this era or this era and do an album like that. I asked him like how he feels when like fans say that, and he's like, well, that's just not satisfying to me from like a creative perspective. Like, I'm an artist first and foremost, so when I'm writing music, I want to be able to satisfy myself creatively and go where like my heart wants to go. And if you like those old albums and if you like that old style, those albums still exist. You can go back and listen to them whenever you want and scratch that itch. And he's like, if I basically, he's like, if I just made music the way like fans want to listen to it, like I wouldn't be being true to myself if that's not what I want to create as well.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think what has helped me kind of guide myself a little bit with like franchise changes and stuff is understanding that when it is a part of something that has been around for a long time, every new game or book or movie in that franchise is somebody's first time with that character too. And
Hmm.
so I think like one of the things I use to check myself when I get a little too flustered with things, I think me and Rings and Power is a good example of that, is to just remember that like it may be something that is really ingrained to you and really important for you. And is that tied to how the character looks, or is it tied to how the character makes you feel? And also just like being respectful and understanding of like, well, this will be somebody else's first time with that character too. And that like it is something that has to continue and change and evolve to fit what is happening now, and the different like as technology changes, you do have to change how things look because the ways that you are making them are different.
Hmm. And in that Mario Kart World thing that we were talking about earlier, that interview, they did talk about how they also redesigned Mario and like a lot of other characters. It just wasn't as drastic. Like
Yeah.
they made like there's like, oh yeah, Mario Kart 8, like it was very like sleek and futuristic looking, and then for Mario Kart World it's a lot more round and like,
Yeah.
so I mean, and they showed the side by side. I'm like, oh yeah, that is a pretty like stark redesign while still maintaining all the core tenets of Mario. I think
Yeah.
Donkey Kong was just a more drastic redesign.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, hell, we wouldn't have Moo Moo as a playable character if we didn't redesign Moo Moo.
Yeah, and renamed it Cow.
And renamed it Cow, but
I
it's
just
still
love
Moo
that it's
Moo.
Cow.
Cow is good. Cow is good. I actually really want to look at the subtitles for a Spanish localized one because I just think
Vaca.
seeing Vaca up there is going to be great.
Fantastic. Then you know what song they've got to play then.
Oh
If...
yeah, 100%.
God, I hope that's the case.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
Kann du Norsk?
If you've had that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
So, Kate, there was another piece of news that that came out as we were right before we jumped on to record that I want to talk about. I don't have it in the outline, so I'm just going to read it off an email here. Live action film adaptation of Elden Ring announced, and we heard reports of this I think last week or 2 weeks ago. But Bandai Namco and A24 today announced their collaboration with writer and director Alex Garland for a live-action film adaptation of From Software's world-renowned video game Elden Ring. So, not a lot of details, but Alex Garland is writing and directing it. So, Alex Garland did Ex Machina, Civil War, Warfare,
Annihilation. Dread.
Yeah, so a lot of great games. Or movies, I'm sorry. And the film will be produced by Peter Rice alongside Andrew McDonald and Alan Reich from DNA and George R.R. Martin and Vince Gerardis. So I don't know most of those names, but I know George R.R. Martin, a.k.a. the creator of Game of Thrones. And, you know, he obviously wrote on the Elden Ring video game as well. That was like a big selling point when we didn't know hardly anything about the game before Elden Ring was like even revealed. They were just like From Software and George R.R. Martin. We're like, what? But yeah, I mean, how do you feel about an Elden Ring movie? It's the reason this is relevant is Elden Ring is coming to Switch too.
Yes, I have two. So I have had the pleasure of meeting Alex Garland and talking to him multiple times, both on a red carpet and just like at mixers for Civil War, Warfare. There's another movie, I think Men as well. And he is a weird little guy that really likes movies and really likes media. And the reason I think it's interesting is, so I think when we think about Alex Garland, like Civil War is what everybody brings up. But what I want people to do is remember how good a movie 20 weeks later is and how good a movie 28 days later is. But more specifically, how good a movie Dread is. So like I think Garland has a reverence for existing material when he works with it in a way that I think comes through very clearly. I think how do I say this? I think it is in interesting hands. People, I don't know how many people know this. I post about it all the time, but the final scene in Men was actually inspired by him watching his kid watch Attack on Titan. So he pulls a lot of inspirations for things that he works on from the media that his kids are playing, watching, that type of stuff. So I'm actually really interested to see what he does with this. The George R. Martin of it all, like, I think that's gonna be interesting. I have no thoughts here nor there, but I do actually think that this is going to be a really interesting creative endeavor. And I also think it's one, so the most recent movie that he's done is called Warfare, and he specifically worked with an ex Special Forces Navy with an ex Navy SEAL. He did not allow himself to interject anything. He did not let anybody on set ad-lib. He did not let anybody on set change things. And the reason he did this is because that movie Warfare is actually told from the perspective of that Navy SEAL's memory. So wherever there is a gap, there's a gap in the film. The curtains have to be the right piece. There are moments in the film where he'll be standing by a doorway and then he's standing by another doorway. And it's not an editing trick. It is literally because there is a section where he doesn't remember how he got from one spot to another.
Wow.
And the reason I bring that up is in the creative process, and then when he was talking about why he did it that way, is he said that he felt more free working within the constraints of somebody else's, almost like very within somebody else's personal story. And I think that has really come through in the adaptations that he has worked on as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what he brings to this form and how much he does let the story constrain him. I mean, I don't say constrain in a negative way, but actually, like, as somebody who has said he finds a lot of creative freedom in that constraint, I really do wonder what he comes out with.
Yeah, and I mean, there could be so many different directions they go with an Elden Ring movie. Like, I don't even know. Like, I mean, there's so much lore, but like, how do you squeeze that into like one like 2 to 3 hour movie?
Well, and it's also interesting too because they can go the game route. They can also do it the manga. Like, there have been multiple manga volumes that have come out that fit into Elden Ring. So I think that it will be interesting to see if this is an adaptation of what people have played, or if this is nestling itself in a corner of the world in the same way the other external stories have done. We don't know anything about it, so it's going to be interesting.
I'm excited to see live action versions of these like monstrosities that you have to take down in Elden Ring. Mm-hmm. That is maybe the most exciting thing for me. I'm sure the action's going to be phenomenal too.
I think that is why I'm excited for him to do it. Like genuinely. Like, if you take the sound design from his work on Civil War and Warfare and you put it in with the action that he's done in Dread, and you take the creature creation from Annihilation, because that made me real scared of a bear. Like, I think he has all of these pieces that come together, and I don't think a lot of the reactions understand how vast his filmography is when it comes to it, because he can get real weird with it. I want him to be a weird little guy in this movie and just go all out.
Oh, and he will have plenty of opportunities to be a weird little guy and go all out. I mean, I think Elden Ring is the most weird little guy from Software game.
Yes!
I mean, aside from maybe some of like the non-Souls-like games that they've done, where it's just like, hey, let's just make weird little guys everywhere. So maybe Alex Garland is the right choice for this. I knew that I made the right call having you on this episode, even before we knew that this news was coming through. But you cover a lot of movie stuff over at But Why Though as well. So I mean, you just came back from Mission Impossible and you're writing your review right after this episode. So you have insights into the film industry that I will never have. So
look, what I lack in Zelda knowledge, I make up for in weird facts about directors.
And knowledge that Alex Garland is a weird little guy. So great.
Yes.
Looking forward to seeing Elden Ring. I don't know. We don't have a date for it, but yeah, I mean, Elden Ring is just like this massive franchise now. You know, it's not just Elden Ring. Now it's Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree, the expansion. Elden Ring Night Rain comes out this month, like next week it comes out. Goodness gracious. So lots of excitement surrounding Elden Ring, and now it's a multimedia franchise. In addition to like the mangas and everything, it is now going to be a major motion picture from A24. So that's pretty cool. In much stupider news, did you see the AI Darth Vader in Fortnite? So for people who are not aware, James Earl Jones, who famously voiced Darth Vader, he passed away last year. And before he did that, he signed a deal that allowed Disney to use AI to recreate his voice for the character of Darth Vader. And I think his intent was that, like, this would allow the character to live on without changing the voice away from what people are used to, which, you know, it's one of the most iconic voices in film history. So, okay, if that's what James Earl Jones truly wanted for that one specific character, fair enough, I guess. This past week, Fortnite introduced an AI-driven Darth Vader NPC that let players go up to him in Fortnite, and you could talk to him through your voice chat, and he would respond. And you could just be like, hey, what is this? And he would respond with your character that you have. And it's very funny to hear Darth Vader go, Hatsune Miku, and then like answer. But so Epic Games, I saw somebody actually do a deconstruction of the code, and there are multiple lines of code that are built in to prevent certain inappropriate words and phrases, as well as all mentions of V-Bucks from being talked about by Darth Vader. But some players found ways around that, and before you knew it, Darth Vader was cursing, and in some cases using homophobic slurs. So obviously Disney was rightfully upset about that. And now it's causing even more problems as SAG-AFTRA has filed an unfair labor complaint with the NLRB, saying that Llama Productions, who did the work for Fortnite AI Darth Vader, which is a very stupid phrase, did not provide notice to the group or bargain with SAG-AFTRA regarding the terms of one of its former members. So even though they had the rights to this, because James Earl Jones signed that deal with Disney before his death, and his estate has said they would honor that, they didn't give like enough notice for SAG-AFTRA, or in their claim, no notice to SAG-AFTRA. So they are filing a complaint. Kate, obviously, like, I think we're probably pretty aligned on like the use of AI and things like that. But what do you make of this whole mess?
Okay, there's like multiple angles for this, right? I'm conflicted in one, artists of any kind being able to continue on, like, I just let people die. But at the same time, I think outside of wanting to preserve a character, I do also wonder, if you are the income winner for your family, at what point are you like, no, take my voice, take my likeness, give them money when I'm gone, so you make sure they're okay.
Like that.
Yeah. And so it becomes like a complicated thing to think about in that piece. But if you take it out of it, and this is like, one, hey, just stop. Just stop with it. Use it in the way it was intended, to spell check your work. Please don't use it like this. Also, it doesn't even, I'm not even going to do like gamers TM are bad. No, like people, like, what's the joke from Mythic Quest? If you give people the ability to draw anything in a game, they will draw. That is what will happen. If you give people the ability to make anybody say anything a game, they're going to push the limits as far as they get. I think it was really ill-advised for Epic to either not make a robust enough code to consider everything, which is also difficult, or to just do it to begin with. On the SAG-AFTRA stuff, though, I am conflicted, not because I don't support SAG-AFTRA. I do. When this initial strike was happening, we did a lot of coverage of it, specifically talking to union leaders and everything. But if you looked at the initial, the agreement that ended the initial strike, not for voice actors, but for on-camera actors, they allowed people with enough money to okay AI. And that was something that was really an issue for non A-list stars because they were like, this opens the door.
Mhm.
We can't do this. But SAG-AFTRA leadership allowed it to happen because some of the highest earners wanted to still get that sweet check for signing away their likeness for AI. But that also means in situations like this, you are turning down, because what people don't realize what that did and what that doorway did is voice likeness actors are like, that is a very good endeavor for a lot of these franchise driven shows that come out. So you're looking at the entirety of Clone Wars, any sort of Disney animation for Marvel, Star Wars. So that eats in and takes that job from that voice actor who could come in and do that likeness work. I don't think SAG-AFTRA has a lawsuit because they're the reason their voice actors are in this mess. And that is my personal opinion. I think that it shouldn't be allowed to happen. I think that fair labor practices should always be in place. But I also know enough SAG-AFTRA members who were angry with that leeway that the highest earners were given. And now a lot of the voice actors are having that ramification. And ultimately, if Epic never agreed to any agreement, any interim agreement, any contract agreement, that also means that they have no basis in court because they didn't break anything, which is the big issue right now. Is while companies are getting around the video game actors strike, which is still going on, they are getting around it and they're not facing ramifications because they're using non-union actors because they have not signed a contract. They have not agreed to an interim contract. So SAG-AFTRA is kind of all bluster right now. I could be wrong, and like, I'm not a lawyer, but it's like this weird thing where like all of it's bad and stupid, but also like the SAG-AFTRA stuff itself is this weird like nexus of bad decisions made for people who wanted to make money off of AI. Does that make sense?
So you're saying basically because they bent and allowed it as a precedent that they kind of killed their own case in this regard?
Essentially. Because
Okay.
they allowed it to be that James Earl Jones could sell his likeness, and that was okay under SAG-AFTRA protected status for on-camera actors. Voice actors, which fall into a different union under SAG-AFTRA, they did not realize that actually takes money out of voice actors' pockets when you do that, essentially, especially for likeness work. So yeah.
I wonder if that's why they're not pursuing like the idea that they used AI James Earl Jones, but the fact that they didn't give them notice, right? It's like they're going after the thing, like they want to be upset about this, but they're like, oh, we've already allowed that under a precedent.
Exactly.
So what we're going to go after is this. It's like when like, you know, somebody commits a crime and they get off for it, but it's like, okay, well, we know he was guilty, so we're just going to watch his every move, and if he jaywalks, we're going to pick him up for that.
Yep. Pretty much. And the other thing too is, if I remember correctly, Epic is headquartered in Raleigh, which is an at-will state, which means at will, they don't have to give anybody any sort of notice for anything if you're in their employ. So
I wonder where Llama Productions is, because Llama Productions is the one.
Well, so that's going to be the interesting thing though, because if Llama Productions is specifically so I've seen it happen in like, when it comes to like layoff stuff and layoff packages, if it is a contracted piece within a larger company, that larger company can shield the smaller company.
So it looks like they are in the Delmarva region and California.
Oh, well then, yeah, that's probably why they're going after them then, because California is not an at-will state. You have to give at least 60 days notice that you will not be allowing somebody to work for you still. It's called a warn period. So if your company is headquartered, also, sorry, little tidbit, if you're ever laid off and your company is headquartered in California and they don't give you 60 days of pay outside of your severance, you have a right to sue them because they have to give you a warn period. Friendly note.
The more you know. So yeah, that's a whole mess. We'll see. We'll have to monitor how that plays out. But yeah, it seems like the Darth Vader thing was a misfire for Epic.
It's dumb. I don't know how nobody saw this coming.
I mean, they're like, oh yeah, if we just outlaw these 12 words and phrases, like, we're good. And it's like, no, people immediately, like you said, the first thing they're going to do is make it do something inappropriate.
Exactly. Exactly.
So we'll keep an eye on that as any new developments happen. But Kate, we're going to close out with this since it segues nicely into the main segment. After sitting out last year, Nintendo has announced it is making its grand return to Gamescom in 2025, likely to promote Nintendo Switch 2 titles. Do you have any way too early predictions for Nintendo at Gamescom? Do you think we'll get announcements, or do you think we'll just get demos for things that we already know about by the time Gamescom rolls around?
I think we will get at least one big announcement. Because there's no reason to go back to a show if you're not coming with something that isn't new.
Well, what if they do this? This is my prediction. I think that at the end of June, early July, they're going to do a Nintendo Direct, a post-Switch 2 launch Nintendo Direct, because they've traditionally done one around kind of like the Summer Game Fest timeframe, but not in Summer Game Fest. Usually it's like end of June. And then I think PAX West and Gamescom will be the two opportunities for people to play it for the first time, whatever those things are that they announce before the holiday season.
That's fair. No, that's fair. I could see that. There has to be something new that we don't currently know.
Oh, no. I think that there's a ton of stuff that we don't know about yet that is going to be coming this year, if I'm perfectly honest. Like, compare it to 2017. Like, this is a very good year for Nintendo once Switch 2 comes out. But if you compare it to 2017 and like the first year of the Switch 1, this pales in comparison. We are probably getting, I mean, again, I could be wrong. I always say try to predict Nintendo at your own peril. But like, I think that we're going to get one, maybe two more AAA Nintendo games for this year.
Oh, no. I think the fact that we know the development for Mario Kart World started so soon, I guarantee you that is not the only game that had hardware constraints on it that they worked on. That is what I think.
Maybe that's why we're waiting on that new 3D Mario game that we're going to hopefully hear about in June, because it's going to be like Bowser's Fury, but giant world instead of just like a small open world, because the Switch 2 can handle it. Maybe that's why. But Gamescom goes down in Cologne, Germany from August 20th to August 24th. So we'll be watching that with great interest. Maybe I'll even go. Who knows? The possibilities are endless, just like Darth Vader's AI. So we are going to take our final break of this episode, and when we get back, we'll be doing a hype ranking for all of Nintendo's announced games. We will be right back. We are back for the final time this episode, and Nintendo has a ton of games on the horizon, both for Switch 1 and Switch 2. So I wanted to check our temperatures on each title going forward. So Kate, what we're going to do is I have Tier Maker up on my computer. I have the box arts for all of the games that we're going to discuss sitting underneath a tier list. There's S, A, B, C, D, and F tiers that we can slot these in. I just want us to go and try to come up with a brief, like we don't have to spend a ton of time on these, just kind of coming to a consensus of how hyped we are for each game, each first-party game. So, like, we're not going to be like, okay, Cyberpunk 2077 on Switch 2. Like, how hyped are you? We're not going to worry about that. And we're also not going to do the free updates. So, like, yes, I'm very excited for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on Switch 2 because I want that game to actually function the way it was supposed to function. But we're not going to have that. If it has a paid upgrade or additional content, we will include that. So like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Super Mario Party Jamboree, all those are included, as well as any of the games that were either previously announced for Switch 2 and Switch 1 that aren't out yet, or games that were revealed during the two Nintendo Directs in March and April. So I have, let's see, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 17 games that we are going to slot into this tier list. We will try to do it as efficiently as possible to avoid this being a marathon. But we're going to go chronologically here for when they're coming out or where their estimated window is. And so you know that means we are starting in a very specific game. June 5th, the Nintendo Switch 2 launches. and the big launch title is Mario Kart World. Kate, I'm going to just outright propose an S tier ranking for this one.
Immediately. No argument. No argument at all.
I don't think there's any controversy in throwing that in among the most anticipated games that Nintendo has announced. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, one of the top 5 selling video games to ever exist. And for good reason. Mario Kart is just one of the most beloved franchises in the history of the industry, and this looks like an incredible evolution of the franchise.
People just want to play Cow. That's what it really is.
And Cow, yes. Cow is really the reason. It would be an A tier if Cow was not playable.
Exactly.
All right, so easy enough, right? This exercise is so easy. Let's jump over to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. That's another June 5th release, the Nintendo Switch 2 edition. It adds improved frame rate, improved resolution, and then if you use the Zelda Notes app, you can get additional lore. You can get like GPS navigations, like where a voice will tell you how to get somewhere on the app. So like there's additional like voice notes that you can find around the world, and like it'll spill like additional tidbits. You can also, for certain games, repair your weapons if they break. And then we'll talk about Tears of the Kingdom as well, since like they're kind of similar upgrades. For Tears of the Kingdom, you can share like your Ultra Hand creations with friends. So fun stuff in there. Do you want to rank these both in the same tier, do you think?
Look, this is mid for me.
Okay.
Only because like I think this is like probably C, like not hyped, but not hyped. Just kind of like, that's cool. Also, it is specifically because my one frustration with the Switch 2 is exactly what is coming with this game. Is stop making me have apps for everything. Yeah. Please stop, for the love of God.
I am personally very excited for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom on Switch 2 because, and this is maybe just because I love these games so much, but I was planning on replaying them. And then when the Switch 2 Direct that revealed all this stuff came out, they were like, oh yeah, improved versions of this. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just wait to replay them. So I'm waiting for Switch 2 to replay Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So I am probably personally in like the A or B tier for these.
I could give you B. I can give you B.
I think
this will bring people home. Like people, I'll give you B.
Okay, so let's put them both in B. Like we're fine putting them both in the same tier?
I'm good with that.
Okay, so those are coming.
If there
June
wasn't
5th.
an app, I could give you A, but there's an app, so I'm gonna give you B.
I don't need any more second screens. All right, so also coming June 5th, 2025, Kate, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. This is the premium instruction manual that is also a paid piece of software. Who cares if it's $10? It is still a paid piece of software, so we are going to talk about it. I almost put these tiers as S, A, B, C, D, and Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour as the bottom tier.
Yes, that is exactly what it should be.
And here's the thing, though. I felt bad doing that because it does feel like a perfectly fine and like fun collection of mini games that demonstrate like what the Switch 2 can do. Like there's fun HD Rumble stuff. There's fun like mouse control stuff. But this isn't a $10 piece of software. This is something that should be a pack-in game, the way Nintendo Land was, the way Wii Sports was. Wii Sports, if you had us pay $10 for Wii Sports, that's more justified in my mind than this. Yes. But they didn't. They gave it to you for free.
Well, like, genuinely, this is a piece that you will pay $10 for and never really go back to. You know what it's perfect for? Demo stations and stores to show people why this actually is different from their first Switch and why they would need it. Or to get you familiar with it. So this is all the way down.
And it doesn't even work in that capacity because you have to like guide your person around the surface of the Switch. So it's like kind of confusing, the navigation to how to get to these different
really?
It's not just a list of games to like check it out. It is like, maybe there is a way to just access it via a list, but the way the build that I played at the New York event. If this was a pack-in game, I'd probably put it as a C. But because you have to pay for this, I'm going to put it in the F tier.
Yeah, 100%. Also, like, don't like paywall efficiency of your product.
Don't paywall the manual.
This is how you should use it to get the most out of it. Pay $10 to find out. Like, no.
Very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. We got one more that is coming out June 5th. This is actually, I think, the sole... Actually, no, I guess you are paying for it because it's part of the subscription. The Nintendo GameCube, Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack Library. Exclusive to Switch 2. How are you feeling about having GameCube games on our Switch 2?
This is an A for me because GameCube was my first time owning a Nintendo console.
Okay.
And it means a lot to me. And I also think very specifically, the reason this is A outside of like the personal piece is I do actually think that there is so much value baked into, even if it's an online subscription, giving people access to what came before, because so many people have been priced out of gaming for different generations. Allowing people to go back and play the past, that's how you keep building investment. That's how you make it so that people can understand and not have those gaps. So I think that there's a lot of value to be added for how people can even interact with and talk about Nintendo. So that goes up for me.
Yeah, and I'd probably say like a B+ for me, so I'm willing to round up to an A. Okay. It's also cool because for a lot of the games, this is like, when HD TVs, widescreen TVs were starting to appear.
Yeah.
You can actually select if the game has native widescreen display, you can select to display the game in that way. So I was playing F-Zero GX, I was playing Soul Calibur 2 in widescreen display, and it looked unbelievable.
Wait, what?
You didn't know Soul Calibur 2 was in it? The one with Link in it.
It changes everything, Brian.
I know that. I mean, that's the other reason is when
it's
I
like
heard
the definitive, like.
Yeah, the GameCube version with Link is the best version of that game by far. So let's put it in the A tier.
Okay, A tier, yes. Also, Super Mario Strikers.
Super Mario Strikers. I will say it loses a couple of points in my book for. I mean, Bill Trinan, I think, was the one that said that, like, just because the Wind Waker is in the GameCube library, it doesn't mean we're not going to put, like, other versions of the game out there. And I'm like, because at first I was like, oh, man, like, I'm happy Wind Waker's finally coming to a Switch, but, like, it sucks that it's not Wind Waker HD because I think that the quality of life improvements make up for the fact that the art style isn't as liked as the GameCube version. But that said, if we can get HD, then I'm happy with that. I wish that Wind Waker had native widescreen display, but Nintendo did not have that as an option, so you have to play it in 4:3. But yeah, GameCube lands solidly in the A tier. We don't have a date for this next one, but it is said to be summer on Switch 2, and that is Dragon Drive. So that is the wheelchair basketball game, which I played a little bit of at the Switch 2 event. I think I played 2 or 3 matches and did the tutorial. It's very intuitive. There's some like hitches that I ran into, but what I like about this is it does something with the mouse controls that only you can only get on the Switch 2, because like, you can play games on the mouse or on a PC and use a mouse and like get a lot of the stuff. Like Civ 7, for example, is on Switch 2 and you can use the mouse. And it's like, okay, well, that's just like playing it on PC. However, who has 2 mice connected to their PCs? So you don't have this capability for most PCs to do input like this, whereas this is something unique to Switch 2. So while like my interest overall is like probably like low D tier, I want to say like D or C for Dragon Drive, just because the novelty of it, even though like I'm probably leaning D if I'm honest.
I think I'm probably in C, but that's only because I've seen live like wheelchair basketball games. It's brutal, man. It's fun. It's fun to watch, and I think it's really. I think just like the idea of making that into a game is fantastic. I do also think the novelty keeps it up, but I'm kind of like neither here nor there on it. I think I may be. My hype may be driven by my knowledge of seeing real wheelchair basketball played and less about the game itself. But yeah, I could go C or D, but I think the mouse usage is what's really interesting to me.
So the mouse usage is what made me want to put it in C. here's what made me want to put it in D. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of content. It seems like you can play like 3-on-3 matches, and like maybe there's like single player challenges of like riding around in like the arena, like an obstacle course type of thing. But like, it feels kind of like the tech demo that like Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour wishes it could be, but it's also a paid piece of software, so that's also frustrating. What do you? I'll let you have the final say in this.
We're gonna go D. I'm gonna go D because, like, if you're gonna pay for something, there gots to be content.
So the other thing that makes me want to put it in D is because we have several games here, and I want to stretch out this tier list because I don't know how many of these are going to be in the D or F tier.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of highly anticipated games, including this next one, Kate, which we talked about this dude earlier in this episode of All Things Nintendo, Donkey Kong Bonanza. So I got my hands on this. It feels, I mean, I would almost bet money. We were talking about gambling in between segments, to peek behind the curtain here. I would almost bet money that this is the Mario Odyssey team, based on the design of the world, the way that the world flows, the UI that pops up when he gets a banana. Like, it looks just like Mario Odyssey. So that has me more hyped. I'll let you say where you're at on this one before I say where I'm at.
So I mentioned in an earlier segment that I'm not a Donkey Kong girly, but reading the preview that Jesse Vitelli did for us, and seeing some of the footage, it does look really intriguing. I think the world design looks really pretty. I think the color palette's probably the thing that's pulling me in the most. B.
That's where I was sitting.
Yeah, I think B is where I would put it.
All right. Well, we're in agreement. Perfect. I was like, oh, I hope I'm not saying B and she's saying like D, and we have to like average it out at C, because I would feel bad putting that lower than B. I could even go A for this one, but
I do think it gets. Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say I was leaning kind of high B for that. So if you say it was B for you, then I would say like, yeah, okay, let's slot that down.
Yeah, and I think too, like, I do think like hype, like we talked about at the top of the show, like there is something to be said for teams that are making games that are pushing the bounds of what the franchise was before, and I think that alone puts it up higher too.
I'm waiting for the angry comments that says you put GameCube above Donkey Kong, like a new Donkey Kong game.
Yes.
All right, so now we're getting into some of these Nintendo Switch 2 editions that are adding new content, actually. The first one is Super Mario Party Jamboree Nintendo Switch 2 edition plus Jamboree TV. That is not the catchiest title.
No.
I did play the Jamboree TV segment. That's where it's like the camera controls. Not super in love with the camera controls. The mouse-controlled mini games that they're adding are really fun. And, if it runs better, then that's also an added thing. This is one of the better Mario Party games that's ever existed, I think. So it's tricky because, again, this is a Switch 1 game that is already out. And this is not me saying, hey, this is how good I think this game is going to be. This is how hyped we are for this. So because of that, I'm kind of leaning in C, because like we have 90%, maybe even 95% of this game already available on Switch 1. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, I think those games are going to be very fun, but like, how hyped am I for like, what is it, 10 new mini games or something like that?
I was going to put it in A. I really like Mario Party.
So do I, but I'm just saying,
really
like, you can play Mario Party Jamboree right now,
Yeah, but it could run better.
It could.
Those large lobbies when you're playing solo don't run that well, Brian.
Okay, how about we settle on B?
I will settle on B only because I am I'm very interested to see how, because this was like, for me, this is one of my favorite things that did come out on Switch 1, particularly because it pushed what you could do when you do play Mario Party Jamboree. Because my husband's a really good example of this. if you want to unlock something in my husband's mind and hear him talk about it nonstop, ask him about his love of Mario Party. The issue with it has always been that he like has to rope me into like a 90-minute session to play it. And so I think the advancements that came with single player play that wasn't just walking around a board, I think was really important. And I think that like this, I want to see how that is supported on a console built for that kind of thing. So I think that that's really where a lot of the hype does come from. And also I just really like Mario Party.
Fair enough. So we will slot that into the B tier, which is getting quite crowded. There's 4 entries in that already. No other tier has more than 1 entry, and C has 0 entries. But maybe we'll get one of those soon. Next...
We can put it in C because there's nothing there.
It's fine. We can also revise this at the end and see if there's any that like, okay, well, yeah, this does not belong in the same tier as that. I'll run through the tiers at the end here. Next up is another Switch 1 game coming to Switch 2 with added content. It is Kirby and the Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Star-Crossed World. That is coming out August 28th on Switch 2. Where are you at on Kirby and the Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Star-Crossed World? C?
C.
I would probably lean towards B, but I'll go with C as well.
I also think it wasn't like my favorite Kirby game, like hands down. So it's like I think if Air Riders didn't exist, it could go up higher, but Air Riders exist, and thus it will sit in C for me.
Well, we will get to Air Riders in a few entries here. But yeah, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, I think that it was one of those games that I liked a lot, but I didn't really like... It didn't stick with me the way I thought it would. That said, I mean, I would love to see more content. I am excited for that. Honestly, if I was looking at this list, I would probably flip-flop Kirby and Super Mario Party. I would probably, for me personally, and again, this is our joint list, so this is not me saying like we should do this. Yeah. I would probably put Kirby Nintendo Switch 2 Edition in B and put Mario Party Jamboree in C. But again, this is a joint list, so we are compromising.
The way you said compromising.
All right, so now we have another heavy hitter. We have a couple of heavy hitters in a row here. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, coming sometime in 2025 on both Switch and Switch 2. I'm going to come right out and say it. Based on what I played, I'm going to put this... I would personally probably put it in the S tier, but I could go in the A tier.
No, put it in S.
Okay.
Put it in S. That's my girl. That's my girl. And I remember reading Jesse's preview. I'd love to hear what you thought of just the usage of the mouse for the Joy-Con 2. This was specifically the one where he called out, like, this is not a gimmick. It does really work mechanically. So S all the way.
The magic with it is not only that it runs at 120 frames per second and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Like my jaw was on the ground watching the opening cutscene because I was playing at 1080p, 120 frames per second. I was like, goodness gracious, this is a beautiful Nintendo game.
You're getting to see the girl and exactly how we've needed to.
Yes.
That's amazing.
But then on top of that, the mouse controls. Like you can play, I was playing with like the hybrid like gamepad plus motion controls with the 2 Joy-Cons individually. So I'd lock on and then use the right Joy-Con to aim. But then without having to go into any menu whatsoever, you can just turn the right Joy-Con down and put it on the table and it's instantly mouse controls. No need to pause it, to switch over. Like it works so incredibly well. So
that's also
I'm happy
like
to put
a
that
really cool feat of like engineering as like a game developer to be able to do that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Fantastic use of the new mouse controls. So that, again, that is coming 2025 on Switch and Switch 2. Also coming 2025 on Switch and Switch 2 is a game that I am personally extremely excited for. Pokemon Legends ZA. So you said Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was your first Pokemon game ever. You did not play Legends Arceus at all?
No,
oh,
I've been told that I need to.
So
every time I say that was the only one I've played, everybody is like, go play Arceus.
So Legends Arceus is, I've said this several times in the past episodes, but like probably the best Pokemon game of the last 15 years. And it does run a little rough, not as rough as Scarlet and Violet, but it was their first attempt at like big open environments that you could explore that weren't just like really, really like tiny, like one-off sections like the wild area in Sword and Shield. This was the actual like, okay, we're going to give you open segments, like segmented open world basically was the way they approached Legends Arceus. Legends ZA is really taking an interesting approach here by like making it so that you're in a city the entire time, and there's little areas that are designated that you can go and catch wild Pokemon.
Oh, wow.
And then that's during the day, and then at night all the trainers come out and battle you. And the battles are not turn-based anymore. They are real time, and so you are like choosing your moves on the fly. And the way, I forget who it was that I had on the show that pointed this out, that this is the closest that the Pokemon series looks to ever be to feeling like the actual anime, where you are playing out a battle in real time, commanding your Pokemon, having to like, oh, he's coming in with this move, I should do this move in real time to like time your attack defensively against the, like, it looks so great. If they can pull it off and make it run well, I mean, I'm sure they can on Switch 2, but then again, I thought they could on Switch 1 with some of their games. I would say S for me personally, but I would be willing to go down to an A.
I'll put it at S or A. I think S is probably where I'd be, because that like immediately makes me more interested. I don't like turn-based combat. It's because I'm an impatient person and I don't like being beholden to turns, especially when I know what I want to do. So I have always wondered, like, when I played Scarlet Violet, I was like, oh, so everything is like this? And I've like thought, I was like, but what if I did real time? Like I think that is what compels me to be like, oh wow, like I want to play this game. So I'm good with this.
With Legends Arceus also, like the battles against other Pokemon are turn-based, but then there are boss battles against like these enraged variants of Pokemon, like, and those are like action sequences that you have to like throw like these calming bombs at the Pokemon to try to calm them down, but they're like attacking you in like this arena and you have to dodge them, like doing dodge rolls to get out of their way, and then like turn and throw these bombs at them to try to like drain their rage meter, which, you know, is just a health bar. They just don't want to make it seem like you're throwing something to hurt the Pokemon. So that was really the first like step in that direction that it seems they're going for Legends ZA. So yeah, I would very much recommend, before Legends Arceus comes out, go check out Legends ZA. Like, it's a really, really cool twist on the Pokemon franchise.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to put it in S tier, I'd be fine with that.
I'm down with that. Like that changes everything for me, because Scarlet Violet wasn't it.
I mean, yeah, Scarlet Violet, man. And I feel like people are going to give us crap for putting Legends ZA in there just because, similar to like when a really bad entry in like Madden comes out, the next entry, no matter how good that entry is, people are going to crap all over it because, and like look at like Assassin's Creed, like when Unity came out and people were like, oh my gosh, this is a glitchy mess. The next entry was Syndicate, which is probably the best game in that classic Assassin's Creed style, but people didn't give it a chance because games pay for the sins of their predecessor. So I think that people are going to be like, what do you mean you're putting Pokemon Legends ZA as an S tier hype game? Look at how Scarlet and Violet it was. And it's like, I understand that. But at the same time, like, this game is looking fantastic. And if they can actually make it run well, especially on Switch 2, we are so back, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I also think too, like, I think that there is a bigger impetus for companies to rectify issues that they had in their previous games now more than there ever was, because of the scrutiny they come under in such a plugged in society now. So
absolutely. So we're moving right along here. We're down to the last 6 entries. We are flying through this. One that you've mentioned already, coming to Switch 2 in 2025, Kirby Air Riders. So you mentioned this as though you were extremely excited for this. I did not play Kirby Air Rider on GameCube, so I don't really have much love for this particular corner of the Kirby franchise. So originally, I would have probably put this in like a D or C tier, but because it's Masahiro Sakurai, I would be willing to compromise and go up to a B tier. But I want to hear what you say.
Yeah, I think B is fine. I think for me, a lot of it does come from nostalgia. It's funny. There were two games that taught my brother math: Mario Sunshine and Kirby Air Ride. Very
Math.
specifically, yeah.
What
Because
is?
when it gives you breakdowns of your times and everything,
Oh,
like he was very invested in being good at it. Because my little brother ended up like playing collegiate esports, but like I would never let him win. And so what he started doing was he was learning how to read the end screens, how he would be able like, and it's very interesting to think about because like when we're adults and have fully formed brains, we don't think about like the actual fraction of how many things you've completed out of something that is available and all that. Kids do, and they reverse engineer that. So I think that so those two games are really important. Sunshine and Air Ride are probably the two games that I have like some of like the biggest core memories with when it comes to GameCube, and I think it's also just really cute. I have no other standing other than it's very cute, and my little brother like tried very hard to learn from it.
let's do B. We'll do B tier.
We can put it in B.
Also, I still think of things in terms of like fractions. Like I'm constantly like when I'm at the gym and I'm doing like my push-ups or like I'm on the treadmill or something, I am constantly going like, okay, I'm doing the math in my head to try to distract myself. I'm like, all right, I am 60% of the way done. All right, now I'm 90% of the way done. And it's like that's how I like justify myself to keep going. It's like, okay, all I have to do is do, 50% more than what I'm halfway there. All I have to do is just do exactly what I've already done. Like that's how I keep myself justified to keep going.
I have been doing the insane thing on my cardio days where I have been doing the One Punch Man and or solo leveling workout.
I saw like that. Oh my God.
100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and then it's 10K. Running, I do it on the bike because I'm not that aggressive or want an early grave. But I always
doing that too.
Yes. However, I do 4 sets of 25.
Okay.
And when I broke it down like that, it actually was not as crazy as it sounded. I don't do it every day, just on cardio days, but it's been an interesting experiment. So I feel you. Like the fractions get you through it because it's like, okay, really I'm a fourth of the way done, half of the way done.
100%. That is how I keep myself going. And keeping us going here, we got 5 more games coming 2025 to Switch. I think this is a game that a lot of people forgot exists like completely. This was announced during Pokemon Day. Pokemon Champions. Do you even remember this?
No.
So it's coming to Switch and also mobile devices. It is basically Pokemon Stadium. Like if you remember Pokemon Stadium and Pokemon Coliseum, it is basically seeming like an online version of that. I don't know if it's a paid thing. I don't know if it's free to play. That's why, as excited as I am for this, I'm kind of leaning C or D tier because there's a possibility this is a free to play game and it's because it's coming to mobile devices.
Yeah.
So I worry about that.
I think it's hard. So I guess I have played 2 Pokemon games. I played a whole bunch of Pokemon Unite. Okay. Pokemon Unite is actually probably it's a really good MOBA. It sucks because you're consistently getting paired with people who have no idea what a MOBA is, and that's fine, kind of. Not really, it's not. So that's why I stopped playing it. But I do think a free to play can be very good. I think, however, what deprioritizes this and any sort of hype is that it's coming to mobile devices and the other Switch. Like, wow. Why would I be hyped for a Switch 2 release of it if it is on everything else?
Well, I mean, we're just ranking Nintendo games and our hype for that, but yeah, like it will. I mean, it will run.
Oh, that's fair. Too. Okay, that's fair.
There's the last or 2 of the last games that we have to rank are Switch 1 games as well.
Oh, okay. So I won't take that into consideration. Let's see.
So I'm kind of leaning C, maybe D.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think C or D.
Oh man, I'm looking at the games in those categories.
Is it cross-play?
Yes. So that's also
that's something going for it.
Let's put it in C. because
let's do C.
I'm definitely more hyped for this than I am Dragon Drive, and
This C.
Let's put it in C.
Let's see. Yeah.
Okay, 4 games remain. This one I am pretty hyped for. We've talked about it already. Hyrule Warriors: Age of Imprisonment, coming this winter for Switch 2. I'm going to come right out and say that I think this should be A.
I agree.
Okay. Well, we talked about it a lot already this episode. But yeah, learning if it truly is canonical and we're actually learning about what was happening back in like the flashback sequences of Zelda in old Hyrule, that is super appealing to me. I don't care about the Musu action if that's the case. If we're just seeing like additional lore like surrounding Tears of the Kingdom and like that version of Hyrule, I am so psyched for that. So for a story reason alone, I'm putting that in A.
Yeah, mine is purely off of me liking Muso games, and also the fact that the art style, like it is probably like of everything I've seen, this is the one that most visually pulls me in. It looks gorgeous.
It does look really good. So yeah, A tier, joining the GameCube library. All right, so we have 3 games remaining. 2 are a Switch 1 game. 1 is a Switch 2 game that is not developed by Nintendo, but published by Nintendo. The next one up is Rhythm Heaven Groove, coming 2026 on Switch. I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite here, because I've been saying I would like to see the Rhythm Heaven game or Rhythm Heaven franchise revived. Like it's one of those franchises I've wanted to have it come back. Like the last one was a greatest hits collection on 3DS, so it's been a minute. But I feel like I can't put this any higher than C, and I would be okay putting it in D.
I'm going to put it in D off of no actual intelligent argument other than that I suck at rhythm games. And looking at this, it doesn't look like it's one that will make me get over that hurdle.
Fair enough.
Because there have been... Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, because like there have been games that have made me very hyped from them because I wanted to just go into the world. Like I think it's Melatonin. Yeah, that one immediately did not care how bad I was at it. I just wanted to play it. So I think that this for me just slided into D.
Yeah, I could. Let's put it in D. Even though, again, I feel very hypocritical saying that, just because
we can also lower Dragon Drive too.
I would feel bad putting Dragon Drive in F alone. I think Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour, like, we're just going to rename that.
Okay.
Because I don't think either of the next 2 games are going in that category. So next up is Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, coming 2026 on Switch 1. Can I be a weirdo and say I am between A and B on this one?
I don't think that's a weirdo. I think it's really cute.
Did you play the 3DS version?
No, I didn't. But it looks really cute.
Oh I mean, we're again kind of hypocritical here because it's like not AI. Like this is not a James Earl Jones situation. It's text to voice in a lot of cases, so it's not like actual like AI like responding to us. But it does like take text to voice and like chat with you a little bit. But it is so ridiculous and so like surreal. The first game in this series on 3DS it's a top 5 3DS game for me. Like that's how much amazing. I love Tomodachi Life. And I thought that the series was gone forever. So I jumped for joy. I raised my arms up in victory when this came out, which is why I'm kind of wanting to put this in A tier.
I wouldn't fight. I know nothing about this, but what I do know about it is I love life sims. I love social sims. And the fact that like you can do it with all of your little me's from people that you know is just really cool.
And it's not even people that you know either. Like,
I remember
not? you can put like random people in it. Like I had like Dr. Phil and Shaquille O'Neal and like Barack Obama and Shigeru Miyamoto at my island. Like it was the most ridiculous thing. It would be like that. I'd go over to visit like Reggie Fils-Aimé at his like room, and he would just be laying on the ground rolling around in circles. and it was
Look.
like incredible. It's the most surreal thing, and you have dreams. Like they showed this in the trailer of Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, and the name seems to indicate that they're going to lean heavier into this, but your characters can fall asleep and they dream, and it's all like dream logic in there, and like it all involves like people that are on your island. So like if your friend is there, like your husband is on your island, like they will like be like in like a hamburger eating competition, and then like suddenly like they'll fly away after winning the competition or something just off the
That's
wall.
really cool.
Like what is going to happen next?
See, I like that. I'm with that in an A. Like that is, again, like Mario Kart. I would like a UFO to just descend from the sky and pick me up. Like this is the weirdness that I want.
So oh man, I'm gonna put it in A. Now I'm feeling really bad though for putting Donkey Kong in B, but let's keep it rolling with the final game. This final game is one that I think people are going to expect to end up in a very high tier. A big surprise during the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal event. 2026 on Switch 2, The Dusk Bloods from Software. How are you feeling about this one?
Okay. I think, and I have to put this like within everything else that I have also said. I think that it is really cool that FromSoft is developing a game specifically for the Switch 2. Like, that is a very insane sentence I did not think I would say. And I think that is what makes me excited. I also think the multiplayer of it all is what makes me really hyped for it. And I do wonder if a lot of the Night Rain development is feeding into the Duskbloods development and kind of working out the any kinks that may come through with the multiplayer, like the larger expanded multiplayer pieces. So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited because it's just it's different. Like, this is not what I thought was going to be like on the Switch 2 roadmap. And I think that it really solidifies that this generation for Nintendo is not what it was before.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I am leaning towards A.
Yeah, I think A. I think A.
Okay, well, let's slot that up there. That means that we have, I guess, is it 16 or 17? I don't know. It is, all the games are now ranked. I will read this off, and you let me know if any of these feel out of place, okay? So in the S tier, we have Mario Kart World, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and Pokemon Legends ZA. Sound good so far?
Yeah.
A tier, GameCube Collection, Hyrule Warriors, Age of Imprisonment, Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, and the Dusk Bloods. We feeling good there?
Yeah. It's a little chaotic, but I love it.
It is. There's not one similarity between any of those games, aside from there are swords in Dusk Bloods and Hyrule Warriors. B tier. Here's the most populated one. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Switch 2 versions. Donkey Kong Bonanza, which I still think is a surprising inclusion in the B tier.
I think we should bump it to A.
Okay.
I think we should bump it to A.
Let's do that. I would feel better about that. Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV, Nintendo Switch 2. I don't know. There's like 7 qualifiers in there. So Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Party Jamboree, and Kirby Air Riders are in B. Then in the C tier, Kirby and the Forgotten Land and Pokemon Champions. Feeling good still. Mm-hmm. D tier is Dragon Drive and Rhythm Heaven Groove. And then in the bottom tier, which has been renamed the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour tier, Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour.
Yeah. I think this is good. I like this. I vibe with this.
All right. So we have 3 games in that S tier, Kate. I'm going to give you one last challenge. You can choose 2 of those top 3 games, and 1 you can never play. Which 2 are you keeping and which one are you losing? So again, it's Mario Kart World, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and Pokemon Legends ZA.
I lived my whole life without a Pokemon game until Scarlet Violet. I
made it this far
to say that.
You should have whipped out the Texas accent for that. I made my whole life.
Yeah. That's my answer.
I would probably, I mean, oh man, for me, it would probably be Metroid.
Ooh.
Like Mario Kart is such an important franchise to me, and so
That's
is Pokemon. Like
That's
Pokemon
fair.
was my first RPG, and Mario Kart, like I have such like fond memories of playing that with my dad growing up, and like
Yeah.
I've loved like pretty much every entry since. So like Metroid, I just don't have as much affection for that franchise, even though I've loved all the games that I've played. It's just like, man, those are some heavy hitters there.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's a good S tier.
yes. So, all right. Well, we did it, Kate. Thank you so much. And if you want to see the video version of this, you can watch it either on YouTube or Spotify. We do have the tier list up on the screen during the exercise. But Kate, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of All Things Nintendo.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. As you know, my Patreon and its associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in, but you can also get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com or hit me up on Blue Sky or Instagram at Brian P. Shea. That is also my YouTube channel name. If you would subscribe to that channel, it would help me out a lot. Kate, where can the fine folks listening to this show find you online?
Yeah, you can come find me mostly on Blue Sky. Instagram, I really just post stories, but it's at Oh My Myth Reindeer, name of Gandalf. You can look it up. And then you can find all of my work over at butwaytho.net. I am the editor-in-chief there, but I specifically curate all of our film, TV, and anime content, but I do write a lot of game reviews and features and previews over there. So you can check that out.
That is our show for this week. Thank you again so much for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Before we wrap up this episode, I just want to give a special shout out to the $10 patrons of the All Things Nintendo podcast. Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richland, Chaps My Ass, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jason Thompson, Jawar Hello, Jill Grote, Johnny Five, Jordan Sloat, Jose Villalobos, Joshua DeProy, Cody Gibson, Creeper207, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Philip G. Cox, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sosa, Roberto Nieves, Roger Reichart, Russell Sayer, Smithy Poo, and Zek Three Sword Sama. Thank you so much for your continued support.
I have already told Matt that I'm going to try my hardest to make a mariachi that is a tongue twister. See, I knew it. I said it in my head, and then I would mariachi Waluigi. My Halloween costume.
Oh my God.
I'm going to try my hardest.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Okay.
I also realized when you said that I had never said it out loud.
Right? Like, I didn't say it out loud. I only typed it in my preview, I think.
Yeah.
And then I was like, when I went to go say it just now, I was like, holy, that is a tongue twister. Mariachi, man, I even...
Yeah, mariachi for whatever reason, I think it's because it's like it follows the rolled R and mariachi Waluigi.
Yes.
Yeah. Get one.
Hey there, Hugh from Podderation here. If you liked today's show, why not check out Make Believe Heroes, a family-friendly D&D show for all ages. Join our eclectic, lovable cast as they explore the world of Manumi and beyond in a show that's designed for everybody to be able to enjoy. If you'd like to hear more, check out our website at podderation.com.